of controlling the mind and what is Arjuna's response to this perspective. So based on teachings of Srila Prabhupada from Bhagavad-Gita, we'll start with the prayers. All of you can recite the prayers, please. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Prabhu Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadadara
Shri Advaita Gadadara
Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrunda
Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare
Hare Rama Hare Rama
Hare Rama Hare Rama
Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Today we'll be covering from 33rd verse of 6th chapter. So this is why it is important, because after hearing the entire Ashtanga Yoga system as prescribed by Lord Krishna, with reference to Vedic perspective and all the various sages who had practiced this, what is Arjuna's response? And whether he will be able to accept it, or he says whether it is impractical. So that is the perspective here. All of you can recite this verse. Arjuna Vacha Yoyam Yogastvaya Prokta
Yoyam Yogastvaya Prokta
Samyena Madhusudana
Samyena Madhusudana
Etasyaham na pashyami
Etasyaham na pashyami
Chanchalatva sthitim stiram
Chanchalatva sthitim stiram
Yoyam Yogastvaya Prokta
Yoyam Yogastvaya Prokta
Samyena Madhusudana
Samyena Madhusudana
Etasyaham na pashyami
Etasyaham na pashyami
Chanchalatva sthitim stiram.
Chanchalatva sthitim stiram.
So Arjuna is saying, Yoyam Yogastvaya Proktaha. The yoga system, what you have taught me, what you have explained to me, Tvaya Proktaha. Samyena Madhusudana. It appears like very impractical, oh Madhusudana. Etasyaham na pashyami. Pashyami means to see. Etasya aham na pashyami. It is impractical, I feel. I am not able to perceive anything in this reality. Unendurable, impractical. Why? Chanchalatva sthitim stiram. For the mind is restless and unsteady. Chanchala means one very shaky. See, for the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think this is a wrong translation, it has come here. It says, O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me. For the mind is restless and unsteady. So because this is the nature of the mind, restless, unsteady, that is chanchalatvat and sthitim stiram, and it is not in a stable position, it is unstable. Na pashyami, I am not able to see it is in a realistic way, it is impractical for me. And unendurable means he is not feeling confident of practicing, or he is not feeling confident of the achieved results. So why was Arjuna feeling in this perspective? The yoga system, why did Arjuna reject proposed by Krishna? Out of feeling of inability, not possible for ordinary man to practice, to leave family and practice yoga in this age of Kali. And it may be possible for very few rare men, but people in general, it is impossible. That is what is samyena, to regulate the mind, is impossible in this Kali Yuga. Why? Because the symptoms of Kali Yuga are prayena alpayushaha. We are very short duration of life. In earlier yugas, in Satya Yuga, meditation was recommended where people were 1 lakh years. Their age span was too big. And in Kali Yuga, we are also not serious about self-realization. Prayena alpayusha sabya kalo asmin yuge jana manda samanda matayo manda bhagyo iti upatrataha. This is the qualities of Kali Yuga, it says. Manda bhagyaha. We are unfortunate. Upadrataha. We are always with difficulties. We are very lazy. Like that, all these specific qualities make people not favorable for self-realization. So what are the favorable qualities of Arjuna for his self-realization? He is coming from a good royal family, good heritage. He is a great warrior, one of the best bowmen of his time. He had a great longevity. They are more better than our Kali Yuga status of people. Like at the time of battlefield, he is almost like 90 years old. So he is very strong and fit, you can understand. And he is most intimate friend of Lord Krishna. This is an additional qualification. Then, what is the status of those?
I'm fine, Papa. How are you?
How are you?
Very good.
So what is the status of those imitating this yoga system? Hare Krishna, can you mute, please? So what is the status of those imitating this yoga system? They are certainly wasting their time and are ignorant of the desired goal. So this is what happens practically. This yoga system, why it is not practical? What is the conclusion? What Krishna also suggests? And whether people can achieve success in this yoga system, or all these things will be end with the last part of this chapter. But here it is mostly people, it is, they are not very keen because it is not realistic for all categories of people. Now, when one lecture Prabhupada says, now you can imagine Arjuna, 5,000 years old, he understood Bhagavad-Gita from Krishna, his friend. Just imagine what is his qualification. He's a direct friend of Krishna and he's a great warrior. He has got administrative capacity and at the same time his knowledge. This Bhagavad-Gita, which is not understood in one life at the present moment, he understood this Bhagavad-Gita in 1 hour. So how much intelligent he was. And he belonged to the royal family. All facilities were there. He is accepting that it is not possible for me. Do you think what was impossible for Arjuna 5,000 years back in such favorable circumstances? Is it possible for you to discharge? Do you belong to the Arjuna category? No. We are 1,000 times lower than Arjuna's category. And what was impossible for Arjuna, do you think it is possible for you? If what was impossible for Arjuna, such a stalwart, such an advanced, and he is admitting that Krishna, this process is not possible for me. I am a military man. I have to look after the administrative affairs. So how can I concentrate my mind in that way, which you have prescribed? It is not possible for me. He flatly denied. And he never attempted it also, because from the history of Mahabharata, we don't find that Arjuna ever went for meditation of the yoga system. But still, Krishna certified him, you are the only man to understand Bhagavad Gita. You are the only man. Why? Bhaktosi, because you are my devotee. Priyosi, you are my very dear friend. With so much nice certificate, such favorable condition, still he refused. So you can understand, see, the perspective of Arjuna, what he was capable of. To him, what we are. If Arjuna himself is rejecting, what is our status? So in Bhagavatam also, in Uddhava Gita, Uddhava himself says, Shri Uddhava Vacha, Sudustaram imam manye, yogacharyam anatmanaha, yatanjasa puman siddhyet, Tanme bruhi anjasa achyuta. So Uddhava is saying, O Achyuta, O infallible Lord, Sudustaram, it is very, I think it is very difficult. Imam Manya, I consider this. I think Sudustaram, Dustaram means very difficult. Sudustaram means it is even more difficult and even more difficult. It is in a enhancing way. Yogacharyam anatmanaha, for one who is not self-controlled, anatmanaha, Yogacharyam, to practice this yoga system described by you, is very difficult. Yata anjasa puman siddhyet. Please explain to me how one can easily attain perfection. Tanme bruhi anjasa. So please explain to me simply, more simply. Krishna is saying, Yata anjasa puman siddhyat. Siddhyat means to achieve perfection for one. Tanme bruhi, please explain. Yata anjasa, please, it is in a requesting way, how we can easily attain. So if Uddhava is also saying that, please explain to me which is more simple, then who are we? Who are we in any category like Uddhava, Arsha, Arjuna? That is the perspective. Further, it is said. All of you can recite this verse. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna.
Chanchalam hi manah Krishna.
Pramati balavadrudam.
Pramati balavadrudam.
Asyaham nigraham manye. Vayoriva sudushkaram. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna.
Chanchalam hi
manah Krishna.
Pramati balavadrudam. Asyaham nigraham manye. Vayoriva sudushkaram. So Arjuna is saying, this mind is very restless. Pramati balavadrudam. It is very strong and it is very obstinate. Balavat strong, drudam obstinate. Pramati, it is like crazy. Tasyaham nigraham manye. If I want to, nigraham means to control. Manye, if I consider of regulating the mind, he says, Vayuriva sudushkaram. It is very difficult than controlling the wind. So Arjuna is saying, what is wind? I can control the wind. I cannot control my mind. The same word, sudushkaram. What is we saw in the previous verse also. See how the tendency, but it is very difficult. It is being communicated. I think this translation got interchanged here. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, it seems to me more difficult than controlling the wind. So this is the nature. Krishna is trying to communicate to us that it is, means Arjuna is saying, this is impractical for me. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong. These are the qualities of the mind. Chanchalam, Pramati, Balavat, Drudam. These are the qualities of the mind. O Arjuna, O Krishna. And to subdue it, Tasyaham Nigraham Manye, to subdue it, I think, is Vayu Riva Sudushkaran. It is more difficult than controlling the wind. So if Arjuna is saying, I can control the wind, I cannot control my mind, then what is our perspective? So this is a small survey conducted in Bangalore, because Bangalore is IT city where people work with this IT related jobs, where it said 38% of Bangalore techies are surveyed are probable psychiatric cases, because seeing the same screen with so much pressure, they go crazy. And 1 among 20 employees regularly consider suicide, and Bangalore is considered as suicide capital. And 28% are constantly under strain. 300 out of 900 means 1/3 out of men or women, they face infertility problems. See all these things, because sitting in one place and acting in that perspective continuously with pressure, not with physical pressure, it is all mental pressure. So, and these jobs are 24/7 and people go crazy by working on this way. So what happens, why I need to say is because earlier business people means for 30-40 years they used to work and they used to think of retirement. So 25 at the age of 25 you join in a job, until the age of 60 means almost 30-35 years you work. So you work for 6 hours or 8 hours, but here they work for 12 hours or 14 hours or 16 hours. So in that way, what is happening is, in 10-15 years itself, they are exhausted. Their entire work period, because they have used more hours in working, they become exhausted by the age of 40. So this is what people, now most of the people are realizing that this is not the thing what we are meant for. This is like, it becomes like a more monotonous job. And they want a relaxation, they wanted to go out, they wanted to come out of these perspectives. So how it is possible? Because this entire perspective is explained with this thing, because this body is like a chariot. Atmanam ratinam viddhi shariram ratamevacha buddhintu sarathim viddhi manah pragrahamevacha indriyani hayanahur vishayam steshu gocharan atmendriya manoyukto bhokteti ahar manishina. The entire body is explained in this diagram. It says Atmanam Ratinam Vidhi. This Rata is, the entire body is like a chariot. Shariram Ratamevacha. And this Shariram is like a Rata. Buddhintu Sharatim Vidhi. The intelligence is like the driver. Manaha Pragraham Evacha. And the reins controlling the horses is the mind. Indriyani Hayanahur. And the Indriya, the senses are the horses. Vishayam Steshu Gocharam, which are running behind the sense objects. Atmendriya Manoyukto Bhakteti Ahur Manishinaha. And one, that Manishinaha, who is like a passenger in the chariot, if he wants to become a controller of this entire body-mind system, he has to be a perfect person who is able to handle all these things, this chariot. So why it is difficult to control the mind? Mind sometimes overcomes intelligence through mind, although mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence. For a man in the practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it is certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium towards both friend and enemy, but ultimately no worldly man can do so, for this is more difficult than controlling the raging mind. Means somebody comes and hits us, you are not disturbed. Somebody comes and praises us, we are not disturbed. See, this equanimity of mind is very rare without practicing Bhakti Yoga. That is the final conclusion. So why it is not possible to control the mind is, intelligence is supposed to direct the mind, but the mind is so strong and obstinate that it overcomes even one's own intelligence. The hierarchy system, as explained in 3rd chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. All of you can open 3.42. 3rd chapter, 42 shloka. There is a hierarchy in this entire body that is mentioned in the 3.42. Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhya param manaha manasastu parabuddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. Got the shloka?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
You can read the translation, please. Someone can read the translation.
Can I read?
Yes, please.
The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, in bracket the soul, is even higher than the intelligence.
So there is a hierarchy mentioned here. Like if you have a protocol in a company, this is a protocol in the body. The gross matter, it can't move anywhere. If you want to lift an object, your hand has to go and lift it. By default, the gross matter cannot move. That's why the senses are superior to mind. And how do the senses get an indication? They get references from mind. So you pick this, you keep it there. But how does the discrimination come to the mind? It comes from the intelligence. Then how does the knowledge of the intelligence comes from? It comes from the spiritual. So as per the hierarchy system, it is gross matter, above that is senses, above that is mind, above that is intelligence, and above that is spiritual. But here we see mind is so strong that sometimes it opposes this implementation of the intelligence. So sometimes then it becomes very difficult for you to control the mind. That is the perspective that is communicated in the hierarchy system. So is it possible to control the mind? Yes, Krishna is saying yes. When the Prabhupada communicates, a strong mind is supposed to be controlled by practicing yoga. Yoga Indriya Samyama. That is it. This is the way. That's why to control the senses, mind, yoga is the process. And the easiest way, as suggested by Lord Chaitanya, is by chanting Hare Krishna in all humility. Then the reference is Samai. There is a shloka from Bhagavatam which says Savai Mana Krishna Padara Vindayo Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunarnu Varnani. Every part of our body has got a connection with the Lord, like eyes. It wants to see beautiful things, so it can be shown all the beautiful deity forms. Ear wants to listen nicely, so it can hear all the beautiful songs of the Lord. Smell, we want to smell the beautiful things or most pleasing things. So for that, we have nice flowers offered to the Lord. We have nice incense offered to the Lord. We have nice foodstuffs which are offered to the Lord. We can smell them. We can honor them. So because all our senses have the tendency to enjoy, we make them enjoy in relation with the Lord. So in that way, Ambarish Maharaj had achieved perfection by using all parts of his body in the service of the Lord. So that is the conclusion what is given here. So similarly, a shloka which is quoted from Bhagavatam. Ahu Shariram Ratam Indriyani. They say Ahu. Shariram Ratam. This Sharira, this body is like a Ratha. Indriyani Hayan. Indriyani, the senses are like horses. Abhishun Mana Indriyesham. This mind is like the reins which control. Vartamani Matra Dishanam Cha Sutam. Satvad Brahad Banduram Isha Srishtam. The transcendentalists who are advanced in knowledge compare this body, which is made by the order of the Supreme Lord, Isha Srishtam, to a chariot, Ahu Shariram. The senses are like the horses, the mind, the master of the senses, Mana Indriyesham, master of the senses, is like the reins, Abhishun. The objects of the senses are the destinations. Vartamani Matrata Dishanam, and intelligence is the chariot driver. And the consciousness which spreads throughout the body is the cause of bondage in this material body. Sattvam Brahad Banduram Isha Shushtam. So in that way, we have to be very perspective of how this body structure is built. So when you know the anatomy, you can break it easily. That's the thing what we are trying to go through this process. So this is a small story which was always explained by Prabhupada. This is known as Brahmacari Bhagavad-Gita. So there was a Brahmachari who was studying under the care of a guru, trying to understand Bhagavad-Gita. So after explaining to him for some days, the guru had a purpose to visit elsewhere. So had instructed the Brahmachari that you read Bhagavad-Gita, and whenever you feel hungry, go to a nearby village and beg for some little food and maintain yourself. Do not run behind luxury, all these things. So Brahmachari was very happy with this instruction. Every day he used to read. And whenever he used to feel hungry, he used to go to a nearby village and beg from them some basic ingredients. And he used to maintain himself. So because he was staying in a little by forest area, little away from the city, he had very limited pair of clothes. And every day when he used to go take bath and he used to dry them, he has only 2 pairs. So he has to dry them. And 1 pair he has to wear so that it is ready for the next day. After a few days, what happened? There was one rat which was going around and it started disturbing him. It started biting his clothes. So one set was cut. So he had to go and beg from a nearby people to donate him 1 set of cloth. So after a few days again, 1 more set was cut. It was happening repeatedly that his clothes were being cut and he's feeling disgusted because people will not also support him all the time with clothes. So he was thinking how to. Then he had consulted some superior people of the village. Then they suggested him, because you are having problem with this rat, we suggest you that you keep 1 cat. So then he had procured 1 small cat and he started keeping in his ashrama. So because of the cat, initially few days that there were no rats problem. But after a few days, the cat started being very silent because there was no proper food for the cat. So for that, he has to go and beg milk separately. So after a few days again, he started, again somebody suggested, how long will you go on begging for milk? You better keep 1 cow so that your problem can be solved. You need not beg and your cat also can get milk from that cow. So then he brought 1 cow as donation and he started maintaining the cow. So the milk was coming and the cat was very easy. Cat was able to protect his clothes. But to maintain the cow, now he required fodder. So he was going and asking people for fodder. Then it was a very difficult time in summer season, fodder will not be available. Then somebody suggested, why can't you grow fodder for yourself? Then only it will be easy for you to maintain the cow. How long people will support you? Then he started cultivating around his ashrama. So when he was cultivating, there were crops coming and crops to maintain that capacity, all these things and all. Then somebody suggested whether you have to employ some people so that they will be able to manage for you. So that when the employees were put for some time, then they were taking nicely, but after some time the pilferage was happening. Then somebody else suggested, if pilferage is happening, you have to do one thing, you have to get yourself married. Then your wife will keep account of all the things and you can practice your yoga. Now, when on their suggestion, again, he got married, and after some time, he was engrossed into this worldly life of maintenance, all these things and all. After a few years, the Guru had come back. There at that time, he was surprised that there was a big house. There was like a landlord, and all these things were all happening. And he was thinking, where has my disciple gone? So by seeing the Guru, the disciple from inside the house, he comes and he pays obeisances, and he says, my dear sir, please come inside. This is your disciple. And that Guru asked, what are you doing? Sir, I am trying to find time to read Bhagavad-Gita. So this is what happens. So the minimum concern of reading Bhagavad-Gita went for a toss, and he had become a worldly engrossed, find out time to read Bhagavad-Gita. So what is happening is we become diverted by one problem after another problem. We don't say that problems are not there. But what is the realistic solution to that problem is what Shastras are saying. Don't run for a problem which you are trying to find a solution, which is again a problem in the future. You find a permanent solution. So that is the perspective here. Sorry. So next, this is Krishna's response to Arjuna's statement. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, all of you can recite.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Asamshayam Mahabaho
Asamsayam Mahabaho
Mano Durnigraham Chalam
Manodurnikam Chalam
Abhyasena tu Kaunteya
Abhyasena Kaunteya
Vairagyena cha Grihyate.
Vairagyena cha Grihyate.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Asamshayam Mahabaho
Asamshayam Mahabaho
Mano Durnigraham Chalam
Manodurnigraham Chalam
Abhyasena tu Kaunteya
Abhyasena Kaunteya
Vairagyena cha Grihyate.
Vairagyena cha Grihyate.
So this is what Krishna's response is on Arjuna's speaking about the mind. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, Krishna is saying, Asamshayam Mahabaho. O Mahabaho, mighty armed Arjuna, Asamshayam, without any doubt. Mano Durnigraham Chalam. It is very difficult to control the mind. But there is a possibility. How? Abhyasena tu Kaunteya. O Kaunteya, by practice. Vairagyena cha Grihyate. By practice and by detachment, there is every possibility of controlling the mind. The Blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Arjunti, Mahabaho, Kaunteya, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind. Asamshayam Mano Durnigraham Chalam. But it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. Abhyasena tu Kaunteya, Vairagyena cha Grihyate. By Abhyasa and by Vairagya, by practice and by detachment, one can control the restless mind. This is what Krishna's opinion is. So in Bhagavad Gita or in Bhagavatam, there is a Navavida Bhakti. It is known as Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Pada Sevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam, Sakyam Atmanivedam. This is a teaching as given by Prahlad Maharaj in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So Shravanam means hearing about the Lord, Kirtanam means chanting his glories, Smaranam remembering him, Pada Sevanam serving and meditating upon his lotus feet, Archanam worshipping him, Vandanam praying to him, Dasyam thinking oneself his eternal servant, Sakyam becoming his friend, Atmanivedanam surrendering everything unto him. This is what the previous shloka we saw of how Ambarish Maharaj had served in all possible ways and he became perfect in all possible ways. So here what is possible for us is by association, by hearing from superior people, by reading Bhagavatam, by associating with devotees and by reading Prabhupada's books, and by honoring prasada. So all these things will help us in regulating the mind and becoming advanced into Krishna consciousness. So how by eating prasadam we can advance? Eating foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. So there is two things. One is medicine, other one is diet. The medicine is chanting the holy name and the diet is eating Krishna prasad. This is the easiest way how one can advance in spiritual life in this, especially Kali Yuga, where we are very disturbed personalities. So Prabhupada continues here. So what kind of practice is required to control the mind? In the present age, there is no one who can observe the strict rules and regulations, such as placing oneself in sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses, mind, and observing celibacy, remaining alone, and so on. These are the basic etiquette for one who wants to practice yoga. So by the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. And the first and foremost of these devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna, Shravanam, which is the most powerful method for purging the mind of all misgivings. And for all the other stages, Shravanam is the basis. Like when we are doing Smaranam also, Shravanam is very important. When we are doing Pada Sevanam, then all these things, Shravana Kirtana, are very important. They are like watering the root and supporting the basis. And what is this Vairagya? Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in the spirit. It is not just abstaining from the object. Utilizing the opportunity to engage in the service of the Lord is complete Vairagya. So by detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can easily learn Vairagya. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of the Lord, because what is happening is the mind requires some avocation. If you stop it from certain roaming, it will become in the crazy direction. It has to be some engagement. So if you are stopping from sense object, it has to be running behind Krishna. So that is where the engagement of the mind is utilized. It is called as dovetailing tendency. We have the tendencies and they are dovetailed in the service of the Lord. So what is the effect of hearing from Krishna? The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. Then there is what is called as Pareshanbhuti or spiritual satisfaction. By hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. And by discharge of devotion service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as mind becomes detached from material objects. Analogy, it is just like feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. Like when we are hungry, we keep eating. After some time we feel, okay, this is sufficient for me, or a little more is sufficient for me. So with every morsel, we feel our hunger being subsided. So similarly, it is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. So there is medicine and there is diet. So hearing of transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore the expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. So this is the perspective for us. Hearing and diet, eating prasadam. So Arjuna said that it is impossible for me, and Krishna also said, yes, it is difficult process. But if you try, you can do it. No further discussion, because both of them were not very serious about it. It is a process, recognized process, but it is very difficult for the human being at the present moment. The process is not rejected. Bhagavad-Gita accepts the yoga process. That means that the process is recognized. It is a science. But at the present moment, even 5,000 years before, it was impossible to be practiced. Now, how can we imagine that 5,000 years after, it has improved the condition so that you can practice the system? No. Therefore, they did not. Either Arjuna or Krishna, both of them indulge in discussing further point on this subject. The simple thing is we should become attached to the Supreme Lord. Then we become successful and it becomes easy for us to continue to advance in the spiritual life. Okay, next. All of you can recite. Asamyata Atmana Yogo.
Asamyata Atmana Yogo.
Dushprapa iti me matihi.
Dushprapa iti
Vashyatmana tu yatata.
Vashyatmana tu yatata.
Sakyo avaptum upayatah.
Sakyo
Yataha
Asamyata atmana yogo.
Samyata Atma
Atma
Yogo
Yogo
Dushprapa iti me matihi.
Dushprapa
Iti
Iti
me
Me Mati
Mati
Vashyatmana tu yatata.
Vashyatmana Tu Yatata
Yatata
Sakyo avaptum upayatah.
Sakyo
Avapayatah
Tayaha.
So Krishna is saying, Asamyata atmana yogo. Asamyata means this mind is unbridled. Atmana yogo, for one who is trying for self-realization. Dushprapa iti me matihi. Dushprapa means it's very difficult work. Iti me matihi, this is my opinion. Vashya atmana tu yatata. For one whose mind is controlled, Vashya atmana, and while he is endeavoring to control his mind, Sakyo avaptum, and it is possible to achieve upayataha by appropriate means. So for one whose mind is unbridled, asya atmana yogo, self-realization is difficult work. Dushprapa iti me matihi. But he whose mind is controlled, vashya atmana, vashikarana. Vashikarana means to control, to being controlled. But he whose mind is controlled, vashya atmana tu yatata, who is endeavoring, and sakyo avaptum, and it is the right means, upayataha, to achieve success. So, how to control the mind? The analogy is trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. So, it is very impossible for us. So, the yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. It may be materially lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. The mind must be controlled by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. A Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor, but a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna consciousness. This is the final conclusion what Prabhupada is trying to update us. So a devotee can achieve success, but a yogi cannot achieve success very easily without becoming a devotee. So in one lecture, Prabhupada says, so if you want to control the mind, then we have to adopt the regulative principles of life. Not that we have to give up, but we have to make regulated, vairagya. Then it will be possible to adopt. And the best thing is that engage your mind always in Krishna consciousness. We are trying to engage our students 24 hours, either in this way or that way, in Krishna consciousness. That is called as samadhi, transcendental situation. You can eat, you can enjoy, you can dance, you can see, you can work, all things for Krishna consciousness. That will make you renounce order of life. But if you try to follow the yoga system, which was possible in the Satyuga some millions of years before, and if you want to adopt that, it is not possible. If you want to be satisfied becoming a show bottle, then that is a different thing. Remain a show bottle. But if you want actually real success, then you cannot adopt that process. Asamyata atmana yogo dushprapa iti me mati. So Krishna says, Asamyata atmanaha, for one who has not been able to control his mind, yoga dushprapaha, the success in yoga is actually never possible. Dushprapa means difficult to achieve. Iti me matihi. Yes, I think you are right. Vashyatmana tu yatata sakya avaptum upayateha. But one who is determined, he can find out the ways and means how he can control the mind if he is serious. So this is the way. If you become Krishna conscious and try to follow the principles, then that is the nicest possible way of controlling the mind. Upayataha means you can find out ways and means you can control. So this is a simple principle. Like the false self lives a false life. The true self lives a true life. The difference is monumental. Sometimes these quotes are also, in one line we'll be able to pursue a big philosophy in that. Imitation will not sustain for a long run. It is reality which is taking you to the further. Self-realization, in fact, the only religion, for it is the true purpose of religion, no matter how people define their beliefs. So we are growing to serve and serving to grow. This is what the material world is, but it is difficult to free fools from the chains of the river. So we will serve the Lord is the final conclusion. So this is a story about a dog and a person who was very, what you meant to say is very possessive of his dog. So he used to go out for a walk with his dog, and he was very proud of the dog. So it always used to go before him, and the man used to have an umbrella. And to show the people around him, his pet dog would carry that anything for him. He made the dog carry the umbrella between his teeth, and it proudly walked before him with the umbrella caught in between his teeth. Suddenly it began to rain. The man wanted to make use of the umbrella, but the dog was 100 yards ahead of him. He ran towards it, the dog not knowing why the master was running behind it. It got frightened and ran towards the house at top speed. Then the proud man was drenched too completely before he could reach the house and recover the umbrella. So similarly, the jiva, he is blinded by his pride and ignorance, entrusts the spiritual consciousness to the mind. For some time, the mind seems to walk before and lead the jiva. And the consciousness is there firmly held by the mind, and the jiva feels that it is safe. When there is a heavy shower of miseries on this life and temptations of sense objects, the mind, which is like the dog, with the umbrella of spiritual consciousness, had parted from the jiva and is separated by great distance. If the umbrella of spiritual consciousness had not been entrusted to the mind, the jiva could have protected itself from the rain of miseries and temptations. Now, the faster he runs to get relief from material miseries and temptations, the farther his relief seems to recede. So, thus, we have to understand that the spiritual wealth and welfare should not be handed over to the mind, because it is most undependable and it will desert us at the time of problems, at the time of requirement. We should learn to trust the Lord alone, make him the sole support. Then we are assured of success of going to perfection. So again, Arjuna is continuing with his question. All of you can recite the verse. Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Ayati Shraddhayopeta.
Ayati Shraddhayopeta.
Yoga Chalita Manasaha.
Yoga Chalita Manasaha.
Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim.
Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim.
Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati.
Kam Gatim Gacchati.
Arjuna Vacha.
Arjuna Vacha.
Ayati Shraddhayopeto.
Ayati Shraddhayopeto.
Yoga Chalita Manasaha.
Yoga Chalita Manasaha.
Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim. Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati.
Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati.
So Arjuna is saying, Aiti Shraddhaya Peta. Yoga Chalita Manasa. So what is the destination of the man of faith? Shraddhaya Upetaha Ayatihi Yoga Chalita Manasa. Who is practicing this? And who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization? Aprapya Yoga Samsiddhim. But later, this is due to some worldly mindedness. Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati, and thus does not attain perfection in mysticism. See, initially we will be very enthusiastic to accept the process. After some days, seeing the impracticality, we will quit that process. So what is his status? Because he has practiced for some time, but he has not achieved perfection in the process. This is what Arjuna's question is. Hey Krishna, he is saying, Shraddhaya Upetaha Ayatihi. What is Shraddhaya? With faith, destination of a man with a faith. Ayatihi Yoga Chalita Manasaha, who is practicing this yoga system for the purpose of Yoga Samsiddhihi, self-realization. Aprapyaha, but who is not able to achieve it. Prapyaha means to possess. Aprapyaha, one who is not able to attain that perfection. Kam Gatim Krishna Gacchati. What is his destination? Kam Gatim, what is his destination? So what is the basic principle of self-realization? The basic principle of Krishna consciousness. The basic principle is knowledge that the living entity is not this material body, but he is different from it, and that his happiness is in the eternal life, bliss, and knowledge. So this is the basic principle. The different process to achieve self-realization. Self-realization is sought by path of knowledge, the practice of Ashtanga Yoga system, or Bhakti Yoga. But out of these three methods, the Bhakti Yoga is especially suitable for this age because it is most direct method of God realization. The word Yoga Chalita Manasaha, deviation from the transcendental path. To pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war on Maya. Whenever a person tries to escape the clutches of illusion energy, she tries to defeat the practitioner by various allurements. We know Vishwamitra, he wanted to do tapasya, but Indra wants to foil his practice. He had sent Manaka. One small sound deviated from his yoga practice of Ashtanga Yoga. So that is similarly, Maya will always try to allure us. A conditioned soul is already allured by the modes of Maya, and there is every chance of being allured again, even while performing transcendental disciplines. So there is every chance that even in Bhakti Yoga, these allurements might be there. But because of being addicted to higher taste, we will quit the lower taste. That is the benefit for us. And in the association of devotees, if there is any deviation, they will pull us back. So one devotee, Vishnu Jana, how is it possible, Prabhupada, for a man whose mind is clouded to constantly chant Hare Krishna? A man who is always thinking thoughts about family, friends, country, nation. Prabhupada, yes. How can we think mundane thoughts and at the same time chant? Two things are happening. One will conquer. As Maya is working to drag you from Krishna consciousness, you can challenge Maya by chanting Hare Krishna. There is a constant struggle and Maya is very strong. She will entice you to other paths. But if you persevere, if you chant loudly, you need not fear Maya. Simply improve your chanting and you will be the conqueror. Narayana parasarve na kutaschana bibhyati. For those we are not afraid of Maya because Krishna is there. Krishna says, Kaunteya pratijanehi name bhakta pranashyati. Just declare, my devotee will never be vanquished by Maya. Maya cannot do anything if we become strong. And what is that strength? Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Loudly. So this is the simple principle for us, how to conquer the nature of Maya. So this is a story from Bhagavatam. All of us know, most of you people know about this story. Ajamila, who was a strict brahmachari in his days, was practicing spiritual life under his guru. So one day, for the purpose of procuring items from the forest, when he went, he saw from lustful people engaging in some sexual activities. So this first time he was seeing this circumstance. So he became very much carried away. When he went home, he started contemplating about the subject and he thought, I can easily come out of it. The best way is he could have gone to his guru and he could have got a clarification and he could have diverted the system. But he thought, I can manage myself. But too much thinking about that lady, he became very much attracted to that lady. So he left his spirituality, he left his wife's family, he went to search of that prostitute, he started paying for her. Then he spent all his money, hard-earned money, he kicked his parents outside, wife, children. Then he started living with that prostitute. Then he made her his wife. Then he had 10 children. And to maintain a prostitute lady is very difficult. He had to beg, borrow, steal, murder, everything he was involved. He became the most sinful man of that time. So accidentally or intentionally, somehow or other, he kept his last son's name as Narayana. And generally for the parents, the youngest child is very sweet. So always he used to call Narayana, come here, Narayana, sit here. In some way or other, he was always chanting the holy name of the Lord. So when his end days had come, he saw his son playing around and he saw Yamadutas coming to pick him. So seeing that boy, he started calling, my dear son, please, Narayana, please protect me, Narayana, please save me. He was actually calling to his son. But Supreme Lord took that as an indication that he was calling himself. He was calling the Lord. So he had sent to Vishnu Dutas to protect. So that is here, Yamadutas are trying to take his soul away. Vishnu Dutas are forbidding them. There is a discussion between Yamadutas and Vishnu Dutas. And Vishnu Dutas explain to them what is Dharma, who is a sinless man, who is a sinful man. Then they forbade the Yamadutas. First time Yamadutas are facing a revolt in their process and they are shocked. They go back to their master and they inquire from Yamaraja, who are these Vaishnavas and how should we handle? So Yamaraj explains to them what is spiritual life and what is Bhakti Yoga. And finally he says to them, you are all very fortunate that you are able to see Darshan of Vishnu Dutas and You got this opportunity to understand about the Supreme Lord, and he forbids them. Please do not approach Vaishnavas. They are not under our control. And Ajamila was given an opportunity to reform himself. So he quit his family life. He goes to Haridwar, perfects himself, and from there he goes back home, back to God. So in a small nutshell, we should understand that the spiritual life is, we have to be very careful. Everybody will not get the second chance like Ajamila. So we have to be very precise in our process. Then perfection is achieved very easily. Then one more sloka. All of you can recite. Kachinno baya vibrastas.
Chinno bhaya viprasta.
Chinnabram iva nashyati.
Nashyati.
Apratisto mahabaho.
Pratisto mahabaho.
Vimudo brahmana pati.
Vimudo brahmanapati.
Kachinno baya vibrastas.
Chinno bhaya viprastas.
Chinnabram iva nashyati.
Chinnabram iva nashyati.
Apratisto mahabaho.
Pratisto mahabaho.
Vimudo brahmana pati.
Vimudo brahmanapati.
So Arjuna is further giving with an analogy example. Yoga kachinna upaya viprastas means one who has fallen, deviated from the process. Chinna abram even ashyati. Abram means a small piece of cloud. Chinna abram means a small piece of cloud, even ashyati. So it will perish, like as wind moves, this small piece of cloud gets blown away here and there. Apratishto mahabaho, one who is without any position, apratishtaha, mighty armed Lord, mahabaho. Vimudo brahmanapatihi, for him, vimudaha, one who is bewildered on the path of transcendence, what is his position? So, mighty armed Krishna, Mahabaho, does not such a man, being deviated from the path of transcendence, Brahmanapatihi, perish like a riven cloud, Chinnabram ivanashyati, with no position in any sphere, Apratistaha na upaya vibrastas. What is his position? So, does he not like a man deviated from the path of transcendence? Brahmanapatihi is like a vimudaha, he is bewildered and he is lost. So what are the two kinds of progress? One is material advancement. He is not interested in any transcendent, but keen on economic development, promotion to higher planets by appropriate work. Then there is spiritual advancement, one who seizes all material activities and sacrifices all forms of material happiness for spiritual purpose, for a higher purpose. So what is the apparent failure for an aspiring transcendentalist? He could neither enjoy material happiness nor transcendental spiritual success. They explain the analogy of a riven cloud. A cloud in the sky sometimes deviates from a small cloud and joins a big one. But if it cannot join a big one, then it is blown away by the wind and becomes a non-entity in the vast sky. And what is this Brahmanapati? He means it is a path of transcendental realization. Through knowing oneself to be spiritual in essence, part and parts of the Supreme Lord, who is manifested as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So this is the Brahmanapati, this is the nature.
A professor once asked an entire class, what would happen if they held an entire glass of water in one hand for a minute? The class in unison said that nothing would happen. He then asked them, what would happen if they held it for 5 minutes? Again, they said that nothing would happen. He then said, now imagine if you held it out in your hand for an hour. They said that their hand would start hurting. He said, interesting. Now imagine if you held it out for 8 hours straight in a row. The student said, sir, we would probably not be able to use our hand for days due to pain. The professor smiles at the students and says, now class, this is what stress is like. It's not the amount of stress and worry that gives us pain, but it's the amount of time that we hold on to it that actually kills us. So remember that whenever you are stressed out or worried, it's okay to hold on to it for a few minutes. However, we must put it down. If we hold on to it for too long, it will cause us more pain and sometimes even permanent damage.
So it is a simple, whenever we feel problem, disassociate with the problem. Then it will be easy for you to identify the solution. Because once we are associated with the problem, we don't know how big or how small is that problem. When we go far away only, then we can understand whether there is a minute problem or a very major problem. So that is the perspective, what is practical, what Krishna is suggesting to us. And Prabhupada is giving us the guidance how to control these problems. So finally, the last verse for today will recite. Etam me samshayam Krishna.
Etan me samsayam Krishna.
Chetum arhasi aseshatah.
Chetum arhasi aseshatah.
Vadanya samshayasyasya.
Sudanya samsayasya.
Cheta nahi upapadyata.
Nahi upapadyate.
Etan me samsayam Krishna.
Etan me samsayam Krishna.
Chetum arhasi aseshatah.
Chetum arhasi aseshatah.
Vadanya samshayasyasya.
Vadanya samsayasya.
Cheta nahi upapadyate.
Nahi upapadyate.
Krishna, Arjuna is saying, Etan me samshayam Krishna. Oh my dear Krishna, this is my doubt, samshayam. Chetum arhasi aseshatah. I request you to completely dispel this doubt. Tvadanyaha samshayasyasya. There is no one else for yourself. Cheta nahi upapadyate. To click, who can destroy this doubt. So this is what? This is my doubt, O Krishna. Etan me samshayam Krishna. And I ask you to dispel it completely. Chetum arhasi aseshatah. But for yourself, tvadanyaha samshayasyasya. No one is found. Chetum nahi upapadyate. Who can destroy this doubt? So what is the specialty of Krishna to clear Arjuna's doubt? Arjuna wants to know of the future of unsuccessful transcendentalists. And Krishna is the perfect knower of past, present, and future. So he knows how to handle the situation. And there is no one equal to or greater than Krishna. And certainly the so-called great sages and philosophers who are at the mercy of material nature cannot equal to him at all. Therefore, the verdict of Krishna is the final and complete answer to all doubts because he knows past, present, and future perfectly and no one knows him. Krishna and Krishna conscious devotees alone can know what is what. So this is the principle. Apratishto Mahabaho. Vimudo Brahmanapati. Brahmanapati means advancement and spiritual success. So if he is hardly, haphazardly, halfway he finishes, then what is the result? Etan me samshayam Krishna. I am doubtful about these things. Why? Now, because of this yoga system, now take for this yoga system which I prescribed. Now if someone thinks, oh, it was attempted, it was prescribed to Arjuna and he rejected it because it is very difficult. Never try for any spiritual, let us do. No, Arjuna is putting therefore this question, so that in future people may not be discouraged. Therefore he is asking, what is that? Etan me samshayam Krishna. Some of the doubts in my mind, Chetum arhasya aseshatah. You will kindly clear my doubts. What happens to this person who does not achieve the pure highest perfection of success, but half finished or 1/4 finished? Then what happens to them? Tvadanyaha samshayasyasya cheta nahi upapadyate. I don't think that anyone can eradicate my doubt except him. So Krishna is a perfect person to whom.
Once, there was a man who loved to climb mountains. He decided to climb a particular mountain, and was very confident of his own abilities that he didn't bother to research or plan the path he would take to get to the top. He packed up his gear and started the upward trek. About halfway up, he stopped for some food. He stood up and looked over the countryside, and thanked God for all the good things he had, and for giving him the chance to see this beautiful world from such a height. He tarried a bit longer than he should have. The afternoon sun was setting fast, but he wasn't concerned. Even when the sky started to turn dark and storm clouds started moving in, the man continued on his mission. But soon, the night fell heavy in the heights of the mountain, and the climber got lost and could not see anything. All was black, misty and cold, and the moon and the stars hid behind the clouds. Undaunted, the man continued climbing the mountain. Despite his disorientation and confusion, he thought, God will guide me, God will protect me, and I will reach the top of this mountain. He climbed for hours, not even sure sometimes if he was moving up down or sideways. Once, the clouds parted. He thought he saw the peak of the mountain not far ahead of him. But the clouds and the darkness returned, and he lost sight of the summit. He continued climbing in the night and the growing cold, moving more by instinct and what he took to be faith than by any true knowledge of his path. And then, while reaching out over an outcropping ledge, he slipped and fell into the air, falling at great speed. He could only see black spots as he went down, and the terrible sensation of being sucked by gravity. He kept falling, and in the moments of great fear, it came to his mind all the good and bad episodes of his life. He was thinking about how close death was getting, when all of a sudden, he felt the rope tied to his waist pull him very hard. He stopped falling, and his body hung limp in the air. Only the rope was holding him, and in that moment of stillness he had no other choice but to scream, "Help me, God." All of a sudden a deep voice coming from the sky answered, "What do you want me to do?" The man cried out, "Save me, God." God replied, "Do you really believe I can save you?" "Of course I believe," pleaded the man. "And will you do exactly as I tell you?" The voice asked. "Of course, Lord, whatever you ask of me I will do," replied the man. "Then trust me, and cut the rope tied to your waist, and free yourself from the darkness, and be saved." There was a moment of silence. The man began to weep. He clutched tighter to the rope holding him, and felt the cold and the darkness wrap itself around him. And the voice spoke to him no more. The next morning, the rescue team reported that a climber was found dead and frozen. His hands still clutched the rope, and his face was a mask of agony. He was hanging only 3 feet above the ground. Trust God with whole heart, because without God, we lack the eternal perspective in life.
So this is the perspective. Simple principle, but people are not ready to believe in God or have faith in God. Even though there is an opportunity for them, they can easily quit that and cut themselves from this rope and save himself. But they are not ready to implement what the guidance what we get for. So thank you very much. Any doubts or questions, please?
Prabhu, once this class is over, this will be coming in the YouTube, no? So if I want, I can always recollect and again switch this on.
Yes, please.
Okay, which is the link for that? Is it Hare Krishna Golden Temple again? I have to type or
same Hare Krishna Golden Temple. I think in your chat also,
okay.
This group also they would have posted you. Have you posted?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes Prabhu. Today's link.
The link is already posted in the group. You can watch it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
So just like since now what you said that it's available but we are not ready to implement. So is it that gap between not ready to implement and then its availability? How to fill the gap? Like, is it takes time, or is it like for a people to accept or implement? Is it a process, completely process on what we can say?
See, what is the thing is, we are hearing is very easy, but when it comes to practice, everybody has their respective freedom. So everybody expects what is their assumption of solution. So we don't know what is the real solutions. When Krishna is guiding us, when superior acharyas are guiding us, we are expecting the solution to be a one standard, but their solution is we think that is an impractical standard. So that is what the faith in the instructions here, what we have to go through. So when they know this is an easy thing, they simply say, cut off the rope, means we should cut it off. Now we are thinking, if I cut it off, I'll fall down, I will die in that desperate way, like that and all. We are holding on to our inhibitions. That's where the problem comes. And sometimes, see, I'm very poor man. I wanted to be very happy. So there is 2 different things. Poor man cannot be happy or not. Poor man can also be happy, and he will be the most satisfied man who can go to bed without any anxiety. The richest man is a person who cannot sleep very peacefully. So sometimes we analyze, if I have more money, I'll be more happy, I'll be able to do more devotion service. These assumptions are very wrong. If you want to succeed, there is a simple process. Accept the principle in whatever stage we are, practice Krishna consciousness. This is what all the acharyas have recommended, all the shastras have recommended. Understood?
Yes, Prabhu. Clear. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So thank you all of you for attending the class. Again, next week we'll meet if there are no questions.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.